Hello and welcome to another episode of the Basketball Wales podcast series, the Pod Pill Basket, here with me, David Jones, once again for another fantastic episode. We've got something really interesting for you here today. Not someone who's directly involved with basketball here in Wales, but someone who's a big part of the scene in Britain. And we're here with Cazz Hoops. Cazz, how are you doing?
I'm doing really good, David. Thank you for having me. I've been really looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. Ever since we commentated together at Four Nations, I've kept thinking about how can I get more involved with Cazz, because I enjoyed that so much, I must say.
It was great. It was a fantastic tournament. It was so fun commentating with you as well. I really enjoy your commentary. We've spoken about this before.
Absolutely.
And it's great to see all the things that you're doing down in Wales.
Oh, cheers.
So collaborating,
Absolutely.
It's only good.
Absolutely. I mean, we're gonna grow together, aren't we? I don't think we should kind of separate. I know that Basketball Wales, Basketball England, and everyone in the UK is kind of individualized, other than when we're Team GB. But I think we should all work together a little bit more.
Definitely. Like it brings out the best in everyone when you can work together. And we've seen from the tournaments they put on, the teams that are involved. It just benefits everyone.
Absolutely. And I've been watching your podcast as well, so feel free, go give yourself a little plug. It's been awesome.
Oh, thank you. So I am co-host of the Focus Hoops podcast. So me and Darren Paul, we have the Cazz and Daz show, which is it's on hiatus a little bit. We're both very busy people.
Right, no, I get that.
But we do try and cover as much women's basketball as we can. But in between that as well, I've got some interviews out there with the Manchester Giants.
I've seen those.
Yeah, some great content out there. We just want to highlight the players. So interviews with players, post-game players. So you can check that out on Focus Hoops YouTube. Oh,
fantastic. Well, make sure that you go over and check that out and hit subscribe if you follow me in basketball. It's a great place to get some new information. So, Cazz, obviously you're a commentator, as I've kind of spoiled there. You're a commentator up in Manchester, but to the people who might not know you, might not know your story, how you got into basketball, I just think we'll run with that at the start. So, basketball, obviously, when I was younger, when you were younger, it's not where it is now. We're trying to get even bigger than where we are now, but it was smaller again. So how did you get into it with it being less of a known thing?
So I always think this is a really fun story that I do like to tell. So let me take you back. And I think I'm slightly older than you, David. So
I didn't want to go there. I've
probably got a few years on you. But so when I was growing up, and this sounds like it's nothing to do with anything, but bear with me. I was a massive fan of Lego, right? I loved Lego, and I was in the Lego club. And at the time when I was growing up, when I was 11, 12, the Lego was the sponsor of the Sheffield Sharks.
Oh, and gotcha.
Through the Lego club, they gave out free tickets to see the Sharks. So one day my mum and dad were like, do you want to go see the Sharks? It's a free ticket. Let's go watch it. So we went over I lived in Leeds. We went over to Sheffield, watched the game. And I instantly, I was like, this is fast. This is fun. I love this. How can you not love this? My sister wasn't quite the same, but I was like, I'm all in. I'm all in. So from that, we used to go and watch the Sharks. Then we paid for tickets.
Okay. Yeah.
Watch the Sharks. So they were my team. Obviously, I didn't like Manchester. I was like, no, I'm in Manchester.
I was about to say, surely that's a bit of a difficulty for you.
The Terrell Myers shot. That's I was living the dream.
It's iconic, isn't it?
It is. Adam Masters not a fan of that shot.
Right. Okay.
So I'd watch it. I'd watch the Sharks, and then I started playing at an after-school club because there was nothing at my school, and I used to go and play. I actually went and played with a university club when I was 14, 15, because there was nothing else. There was nothing else that I could join. No women's team, so I joined playing seniors, sort of playing up, and I just loved it. I would just play as much as I can.
That's great.
Watch as much as I can, but obviously this was a time the internet probably existed, but you couldn't watch the NBA like you can now. You had to go to a game, watch it live, or there'd be some that were on Sky Sports. So I didn't have Sky Sports, and I do remember my dad used to tape me games and then post them through the letterbox, and I'd get home from school and I'd watch them, and it'd be
lush.
Like one game a week, and watching the Michael Jordan, Allen Iverson, when Iverson crossed Jordan over, I'd then watch it, go out in the garden for hours and replicate it.
Just trying to
play it. Just absolutely fell in love with it. Played when I was at uni, and then after uni kind of couldn't really find anywhere to play. So I had quite a big break sort of from watching and playing.
Okay.
And then got back into it about 10 or so years ago now. I happened to go to a Giants game and they were giving out flyers for like getting back into basketball.
Right.
And Mike Bernard from the Giants was running it. And
that's interesting. Specifically targeting people who'd kind of fallen out.
Back into it and was like, why did I go cool. 5 or 6 years without without this? So that's my kind of fandom.
That's how you get into it.
Yeah.
No, that's a great story, and I think that's probably quite similar. On my masters, I had to write essays upon essays for different things, for kind of the academic side of the course on top of the practical. And I always chose to write about basketball, no matter what the story, no matter what it was. And something that I kind of broke down and realized when I was kind of researching and talking to people is there's so many people who missed out on basketball simply because it's not apparent. Phones weren't a thing. Social media wasn't a thing. There's no way of it coming directly into contact with your eyeballs because you're just watching the Premier League or you're watching rugby or you're watching cricket because that's there and basketball's not. And so we've kind of bridged that gap, I think, a little bit now with it, social media kind of driving that change. But I wonder, because we're kind of in the middle of that first kind of boom, what the next generation is going to be like in terms of basketball here in the UK.
Because it's always really interesting to me how when people say, like, what are you doing this evening? I say, I'll go to watch a game or commentate. And they're like, oh, there's basketball one in Manchester, but 2 in the UK. And people are so surprised. They just don't know it exists and they just don't know it's out there. And it's that thing, isn't it? You have to see it. You have to know it's there to be able to go to it, support it. And I think that's the gap, though, isn't it? If we're not we need to shout about it. We need to shout about the players that we've got in this country. And I'm sure we'll get into this later, but like we've got WNBA players in the WBBL, the Women's British Basketball League this season.
Absolutely.
It's those kind of things and those stories that hook people in and get people coming back so that the next generation, it's not I didn't know basketball existed. It's like, oh, yeah, you're going to the basketball tonight.
Oh, yeah, of course. You're going to that or you're going to that game. That's the big thing. That's what I want to see happen, is when I say I'm going to the game, someone thinks that could be basketball. That would be the huge switch that I'm dying to see. But you're right. It's like almost an experiment in marketing at the moment. With people don't really know that it's going on, but people who are plugged in are super plugged in.
Yeah.
How can we change that so that everyone's in the know?
Exactly. Yeah. And I think I also find as well, you talked, so when the Sheffield Sharks were playing, kind of when I was growing up in the Giants, they were playing at the arena. So the Manchester Giants play down at the MEN, the Sharks at Sheffield's arena. People know of that. They say, oh, I just thought it disappeared as well. Like there was this I just assumed it went away.
Oh my gosh.
So there is that kind of thread sometimes you find with like, I knew of it and then it's just gone very quiet.
Yeah.
But I think
that's tough. No. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so for the GB game that we've just had up here in Manchester against Sweden, so we have billboards in town, like those electronic ones as you're walking down the street, and like Holly Winterburn's on them. It's GB v Sweden, Holly Winterburn. They kept moving too quick for me to take a picture. I tried, and then it got cold, so I stopped.
Of course. No, that's fair enough at the moment. Yeah, my goodness.
But like that's what you want to see, walking down Market Street, the main street in Manchester, adverts for the GB game. Yeah. And I mean, I don't know how much that costs to do it on a regular basis.
No, but that's the difficulty everybody's facing, isn't it? It's just, unfortunately, we're at the point where interest is high and everyone involved can see the growth, can see the rise of it in popularity and live events, things like this, podcasts. And we're seeing, all the kind of shows and maybe a little bit of snippets at the end of a news report if something crazy happened. But until we get the revenue being generated by each and every club, so it's not just Basketball Wales, Basketball England that have money and budgets that they can provide facilities and things like that, but actual clubs can sustain themselves and grow themselves with their own money.
Absolutely, and that's where we need to get to. That's like where we need to get to, and once that happens, I mean, the world's the oyster, isn't it? It's
absolutely that's the thing. Once everyone knows how good it is.
Yeah,
we just it's just got to get there. What do you think that is? What do you think is going to flip that switch, if anything? Do you think it's more Sky Sports televised games? Do you think it's more conversation, discourse. What do you think the answer is? I know that that's a big question, but
no, it's a good question though. I think I mean I think there's a few things, but I think that the awareness is the main thing. Getting people's eyes on it, because the amount of people I'd say come to a basketball game with me, they watch it and they're like, oh, this is fun. Right,
it's undeniable.
You can't not have fun at a game. They might not come back to every game, but people generally, it's a great environment. You know, it's good for families. It's good, and it's
damn cheaper than a football game.
Much cheaper than a football game. Yeah, great atmosphere, and it's that awareness. And I think GB did a really good job in the February window getting the GB games on the BBC. So just on the red huge button.
WPL as well, the wheelchair also on BBC. That's a major thing.
Yeah, and that just gets eyes on it. Like the other week, I was just flicking through the red button, found some wheelchair rugby. Never watched that in my life. Sat down and watched it. I was so into it by the end of it.
Really? The European Championships were here in Cardiff last year. They were fantastic.
It's like that now. If I see it, I will I'm going to watch that.
If I see it scheduled. First taste, don't you? And then you might consider it next time.
Yeah,
the thing with basketball. Something happens every 24 seconds.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's undeniable. In terms of entertainment value, I love football. I'm obsessed with football. It takes up a big chunk of my brain, I think, about football. But really, if I sit down for 2 hours and I watch a game, I'm watching 20 interesting things happen over 2 hours.
Exactly.
Something interesting happens every 24 seconds. Either someone makes a play, someone makes a defensive play, someone makes a mistake, and that leads to 5 other things. It's undeniable. I don't know.
It is,
I don't know why people can't get behind it.
I know, because it catches you. It catches you. You can watch it in clips. You can watch a quick 2-minute highlight video, and you're going to get so much out of it. So I think it's that exposure, just getting it out there and letting people know. And I really think having players like we've got in the Women's League, like Temi Fagbenle, and young players like Holly Winterburn. I went to Sydney last year for the World Cup, people knew Holly Winterburn.
In Sydney.
Yeah. I was talking to basketball people.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, but they knew London. Like they were all interested in London, and a guy I was talking to as well, TP.
Yeah.
Hannah Jump, massive fan of Hannah Jump, who he saw at the Commonwealth Games, who's at Stanford, I believe. And it's those little threads that you've got a player, and people are like, oh, Hannah Jump, she's interesting. She's from the UK.
Yeah,
that's British basketball. And she's representing out there. And then Holly Winterburn, she's this amazing young player who's just going to do incredible things if she continues at the trajectory she's on.
She's unreal.
People out there know her, and I think London being in Euro Cup has been a huge thing, and attracting names like Megan Gustafsson, Temi Fagbenle, Carly Samuelson.
Yeah,
people are starting to pay attention, and that's really important. And then getting the Caledonia Gladiators into Euro Cup as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not just London anymore.
Exactly.
I am going to come on to a little bit of a London topic later. But it's really interesting. Obviously, it hasn't gone fantastically well for all of them entering Europe. But they're there, and then people in Europe start to take notice. I think people are quick to jump to compare to the NBA. It's like, okay, well, you can't do that right now. We want to get like the EuroLeague. We want to be more comparable to Turkey, Spain, these kind of nations before we can think about the US. It's got 100+ year history of being the biggest league in the world.
Exactly. And the Euro Cup, it leads into EuroLeague. The Lions got that EuroLeague qualifier experience this season. And the European basketball is an incredibly high standard. It's huge. Some people, Darren, in fact, would argue it's a better league than the American
I'm not
league.
sure that you could go that far personally, but yeah, I've heard it said.
So, and the talent that's out there, it's unreal. And that's what we need to do. We need to be getting. It's not uncommon to have British teams out there, and the level, what word am I looking for?
Sorry, I'm trying to help you. I can't think of anything in my head.
It's not working. The setup, the pathways and things like they have in Greece and Italy and Spain, and we see, and I think this year especially is a huge step to that. Like London, unbeaten, aren't they, in the group?
Yeah, they've been fantastic. It's just unbelievable. Matthew Morgan, I just can't get enough of watching him. It's unbelievable. He's scoring 20 points a game. 55+ from the field, 45 from 3, 85 from the line, and he's playing like 25 minutes a game.
I mean, that's unreal.
Unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
It's almost unfair.
Talent. Yeah, so you know what? I'm going to ask my London question now. As much as they are kind of blazing the trail, Do you love them or do you loathe them? Just a little bit, because I've got a little bit of bitterness in my heart towards them. I can't
I
hide
can
it.
see it. I can see it. I like watching them when they're not playing a team in Manchester. Let's say that.
Okay, right. Right, you are. Okay, yeah, fair enough.
No, I do understand that, and I do understand the criticisms that come with it.
Yeah.
I just feel like it's, in the long term, I feel like it's a good thing for the league.
Yeah,
and if something's
rising
a
tide
good
raises
thing,
all boats. That kind of thing.
exactly, yeah. Like, it's going to be a tough. I think it was Joe Leadham that said it really well as well. Actually, she said, if we've got this model for 3, 4, 5 years, that's good. If it goes on longer than that, where you've got a big gap, then it's not a good thing for the league.
Absolutely.
But look at Caledonia. So Caledonia have now kind of stepped up
Hugely
into that
taken
second
a step
position.
up, yeah.
Yeah, and it takes, and obviously it comes down to money, doesn't it? Someone has to be willing to put the money in, and it's not always the case. It's not practical. It's just not the nature of how things are with the British basketball. But if we can slowly build it, and you can get 3, 4 teams in Europe, it's going to be a good thing. Although
absolutely,
if we do have that gap, because you do see it in Europe, you do see sort of the top 2 Turkish teams or the top 2 Spanish teams, and the gap is big.
Massive deficit in talent in some of those big leagues in Spain, particularly. I know Turkey as well, but I think it's so glaring in Spain because of the style and things. But yeah, it does come down to money, and luckily for Caledonia, obviously they got taken over. We were all so used to being Glasgow Rocks and things like this, but that change, I think it is important to have kind of one team. You've seen it with Manchester as well. Has there been any difference up in Manchester since we've kind of lost the Mystics and we've moved over to just the Manchester Giants men's and women's?
So for me, I think it's been a really good merge. Like, I do miss the name, the Mystics, and the branding. But
it's a good name, isn't it? I love a bit of alliteration,
me. Yeah, and I tell you what, I keep nearly saying, I'm sure I've done it once or twice, saying Mystics.
I bet.
It's like 3 years of it straight. But yeah, the big thing for me is the crowds. That they've been getting really good crowds in compared to what they've had. The awareness is massive as well, because if you're a men's season ticket holder, you can get into the women's games for free.
Oh, okay, that's a good way of getting people through the door. Yeah.
Right. And last Sunday, was it last week? Last weekend, I believe, we had a double header. So the men's game was at 3 against London. The women's game was at 6. So there was an hour turnaround in between.
Yeah. That gives everyone a break. Go get a drink.
Get some chips. Come back in, and yeah, it looked good from like where I was sat. There was a decent number of people there. It was a really close game. They beat Sheffield by 3, so I think that helps
I saw
as an
something
advert.
about that on Twitter.
Yeah, so because if you go to a game and it's a blowout,
it's a bit boring after the third quarter if they're still up at 45 or whatever.
Yeah. So a close game, and I hear people talking about it, and I've seen on social media more people kind of commenting on the women's posts and things, going to games and things. So I do think it's been a really good thing for Manchester.
Okay, so the merge is good. That's interesting. I just realised as well, we were talking about things being on the BBC and getting more eyeballs, and we didn't mention the the Caledonia basketball documentary on BBC.
Oh, of course.
Have you seen any of it?
I've seen about the first episode. I haven't watched the rest of it yet. It's on my watch list.
Shame on you. It's our duty to do that. I say that I've only watched 2 or 3 myself. But how great is that? I think it's called Ball or Nothing. I think that's the name in my head. How great is that there's a BBC thing? That's
amazing, and that's exactly the kind of stuff that we need.
Absolutely. Because access.
Yeah, and people love it. Don't you see the NFL one that's on Netflix?
Quarterbacks. That was fantastic. Yeah, I love that.
And it's stories. Stories grab people, and players' stories grab people. And are you an underdog this season? Are you a team that nobody expects to win anything? You're going to follow them through and
absolutely
access like that, and on the BBC. And I've seen that, it pops up on when you look on iPlayer and stuff. So it is, I
don't know if it's an algorithm for me, but I see it every time I go on to BBC iPlayer. It's always like, do you want to watch this? Yeah,
You've watched this previous basketball thing, you two might be interested.
Yeah, like surely you want to watch this, right? It is interesting. We're in kind of an era of access, if you will, I think, with so many sports documentaries particularly. And I think he's spot on saying that stories thing. I think storytelling is one of the most in-demand skills that you can possibly have, whether that's in sports media or pretty much anything that evolves around content nowadays. And sports docs are just the perfect way to get people on side, because you've got that control in the edit room.
Yeah.
No one looks bad in training unless
Yeah.
you want them to look bad. Or you want the coach to look good for telling them off for looking bad. And you get everybody on side. You can't help but root for someone when you've seen them upset or sad or down. And then you're like, wait, that's 20 minutes up the road from me. Like, I just can't imagine not falling in love with a team, a player, a boss. Like, if you watch 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 episodes of something, you're going to fall in love with something.
Exactly. You dedicate your time to it, and you spend your time with these people when you're watching it, whether it's, on your phone on your lunch, or it's in the background, or you sat watching it. You become invested, and you want to know what happens. And it's not something that's happened previously. It's now. It's going on now.
Yeah.
So
and it's on mainstream media.
Exactly. So get involved. Watch it. Get involved.
Absolutely. I know we should watch it if we're going to tell
we
people.
We should watch it probably. We should catch up.
All right. I'm going to actually go back to my questions because I'm just talking to you. I'm just realizing that I'm completely going off script. So we know how you got into basketball in terms of as a fan, but commentary specifically. How do you get into doing that? Did you know that was something that you were capable of doing, or that you wanted to do? Or
no, not at all. Not at all. I completely blame Jeff Jones.
Okay.
And it was
blame is an interesting word.
When I'm stressed out at weekend, thinking, "Why am I doing this?" I think it's Jeff Jones's fault.
Damn you, Jeff.
No, so I used to go watch the Mystics, Mystics in the WBBL, and then actually, yes, I used to go watch them because my friend Adam Masters told me about them, and that's just kind of just shut back a bit. I'm not a casual basketball fan, and I didn't know that they played in Manchester down the road, and I had to have someone tell me
that's
that they
interesting,
played there,
isn't it?
like 5-6 years ago.
Proves the point.
And I always think, like if I didn't know, like no one's got a chance. But so I used to go and watch them, and then the COVID season hit, and when they were talking about like starting the league again, so it was the 2020-21 season. Jeff Jones was saying, we're going to stream these games.
So necessary. Every team should stream every single game. I think if you don't, it's a failure.
100%. I'm 100% with you. The players deserve it.
Yeah.
So Jeff was like, Cazz, Adam, do you want to stream the games and do commentary? And I was like, give it a go if you want. Really, I just thought, I can watch the games, can't I? Because they're behind closed doors.
Right, I can get in for free. Yeah.
So we had to figure out the streaming aspect of it, which so the first game I would encourage everybody not to watch ever. It was on a webcam.
That's going to send people specifically to watch, just so you know. But yeah.
I need to put it on private. It was on a webcam, and we were using lapel mics, and it was an experience. And we eventually started to, I spent hours and hours watching YouTube videos on how to use OBS and how to stream things, got it to a really good place. But when I first started it, I just thought, I'll give it a go. I want to try. My approach to it wasn't something I'd ever kind of thought of. It wasn't something I'd ever done. And my approach to it was, I wanted to tell the stories of these players. So I also, want to commentate, talk about the game, but I want people to know who Georgia Jones is. I want people to know who Dominic Allen is. Sophia Song's come over here from California. She had 4 straight national titles. I want people to know about these players. And that's kind of the approach I've always kept with it throughout.
You can tell that through your commentary. You can tell that you've got a genuine appreciation for everyone out on the court. That comes through.
Oh, that's great. I love that. I like that. That's because that's what I want to do. Because it is. I'm watching them. I am a fan. I'm watching it as a fan. I don't know how
important to keep that, isn't it?
Yeah. And it's always fun to me. It's never not fun to watch a game and watch these players. And there are some times now I'm like, whoa, how did that happen?
Yeah, of course.
Wow.
That was difficult with me with the Archers last year. Sometimes I couldn't help myself from being like, no, when the other team scores. Wait, I'm meant to be at least slightly impartial, but it's difficult.
It is, and I think that's something that I really pride myself in having, being a really balanced commentator. I have had people say that they do appreciate my balancedness, which is what
that's a good word.
Balancedness. It's a great word, isn't it? I think it's in the dictionary.
Sure.
And because it's not just Manchester fans watching the game; it's the away teams fans watching the game, and you don't want to be so one-sided that someone's like, "Well, there's no interest in that." The other team has stories too. The other team has fantastic players.
That's my favorite thing about the NBA. If you have League Pass on the NBA, you can choose what stream you follow. It is some of the most entertaining thing to do to switch back and forth, because you can either watch say the Celtics are playing Orlando like they did not so long ago, you can watch the Orlando stream or you can watch the Celtics stream, and every single play is intentionally directed towards those viewers, obviously, and it is for a reason. It's because of the locality of America. It's so vast that people in Boston can only watch that one thing unless it's on ESPN. So there is a reason for it. They're catering specifically to only people in one city. But if you're not from there and you just check in, it's really hard as a British person who's kind of used to that. Like, everybody's watching one thing if you're watching any other sport. And you go into the NBA and it's just someone can make an awful play and fall over and everyone's up in arms. That's a foul. How can the referee not call that? Everything is so big and so massive. It's never a foul on your player. It's always a foul on their player. It's never a travel. The referee's always harsh if you lose. It's unbelievable how much they get away with that. But it's
There's
enjoyable.
No semblance. There's absolutely none of neutrality at all.
No. And I respect them for it because they just go for it.
Yeah.
They go for it and they don't care. And they just, this is the Boston stream.
Yeah, I do enjoy the Toronto one.
Toronto. Charlotte has, like, it's difficult to watch Charlotte sometimes because of the basketball they play. I'm not a big LaMelo fan, but I watch them just for the commentator sometimes. Yeah. It's a older man in his early 60s, and he goes crazy for every play. He's got so much energy, and I respect it. I don't know how his throat is managing, but it's unbelievable, entertainment. I don't even know where we were. Neutrality as a commentator. Yeah.
Yeah, and I can definitely see I've improved because that first game, that horrendous first game as well, you can just tell I'm really sad that they're losing to Nottingham.
Oh, no.
It's like two people are like me and Adam are going, oh, Nottingham scored. That's really sad.
What are you doing after this? Yeah.
But yeah, so I got into it through that, doing that. I sort of got the stream to a really good level, and I've definitely I'd come home and practice, I'd watch things back and I'd ask Darren Paul, he's commentated for the London Lions, and I'd ask him for tips. He's been an absolutely brilliant mentor to me, and I'd ask people that I know, for feedback and things, because it's weird hearing yourself, and
it is tough those first few times, isn't it?
Yeah. And at one point I was saying, I was adding like then onto the end of my sentences. Okay. And I had to say to my friend, I was like, is this how I talk like normally? Do I say then? And she was like, not at all. I don't know why you're doing that. Okay. I decided it was because I was trying to use a different word than I was trying to fill a gap.
Oh, right, a filler word,
Yeah, so I scrapped that. When you realise it, you can stop it.
Yeah, but then it's difficult because it's in your subconscious. My father pointed out that I never just kind of agree with someone. Anytime someone says something, I always say, absolutely. I always say absolutely. I always 100% agree with everything that every person's been saying, and now I'm so aware of it. I do it on here. I think I do it in day-to-day life. I think that's maybe something slightly different. It is actually a part of my lexicon. It's really difficult with filler words sometimes, especially if the game's a bit slow or lagging behind. That's why it's important to be able to chat between people as commentators. And when you've got someone who's maybe a little flat on energy, it gets really difficult then.
Yeah, it can be. It can be.
All right, we'll move on. So, talking specifically, we've mentioned basketball improving. We've seen that there's been Holly Winterburn signs around Manchester, which I still can't really believe. That's fantastic.
It's really cool.
So we've seen the improvements.
I'm doing that game as well.
Right. Oh yeah, because that must be a thing as well. They're advertising the game that I'm on.
Yeah.
Man, I wish someone would put me on a billboard. Anyway, so yeah, we've seen the improvements that have been made, but where do you think basketball still needs to improve here in the UK? What are we doing that isn't excellent all around the board? Because there's some fantastic. So my first thing is facilities. So when I came up to Manchester and I saw that arena for the first time, I was like, this should be everywhere. So yeah, what would your take be on, where can we still get better here in the UK?
I definitely agree on facilities. I mean, have you been into Essex? Have you seen their locker room?
Oh, well? I haven't seen their locker room, but I've seen their court, and it's unbelievable.
So their locker rooms, I've not seen them. I've only seen the pictures they've put out as well. But they're like the typical like NBA locker rooms with the names. And everything looks like they've got a really good setup down there. It looks really
difference that must make to the players.
Yeah, and you go in, you're like, that's me. This is where I am. Yeah. So like that's great, but it varies wildly, I think, across the board. And you mentioned it earlier as well. Streaming every single game should be streamed.
Yes.
I mean, not every single game in the entire country. That would be
no. That's too much. But if you want to grow the game, that should be the bare minimum.
Yeah. And whether we do it so I do the Division 1 Mystics as well, who were the Division 2 Mystics last season. There's the more you promote it, the more people see it, and the more standardized it becomes as well. If you've got a player who's 15 years old playing D2, goes through D1, WBBL, and then on to wherever, if their games are getting streamed in D2, D1, it becomes standard, and they're getting up levels, and they're saying, well, hang on, this is what we have. We should have this, because sometimes if it's not been there, like it hasn't been there, it's only recently, hasn't it, since COVID?
We know it in Wales. We know it in Wales. We've just started the Basketball Wales National League a couple of years ago, and we're still getting there. We're not quite there yet, and that's the big thing that I'm always pushing for, is increased streaming and standard of streaming. Because it's one thing to say, okay, we'll put on a stream, but if it's a static camera on one side of the gym, that's not really worth watching. Yeah.
It's you need to add things, but obviously, it takes time, it takes resources, it takes people willing to give up their time to do it.
Resources.
But I think streaming is so important, because you expand your reach so much out of your small circle, your local circle. People have loads of reasons they can't get to games, whether childcare, they're just not able to.
It's the same as any other sport.
Yeah,
same as any other sport.
Just make it as accessible as you can, and make the standard, like you said, the streaming a good standard. And
it doesn't take that many people.
It doesn't.
If you've got 4 or 5 people who actually know what they're doing, you can put on a really good stream.
Exactly.
It doesn't take a team of 50 to 100.
It doesn't.
Of course, if it's a massive professional broadcast,
that'd be nice.
Yeah, obviously. But if you want to put something together, if you've got 5 people who've got a bit of kit or access to kit or the ability to rent kit, you can put on a really good show.
Completely. I've done games where it's me and someone on the camera. I'm doing the score.
Yes, I've
I'm
done
speaking.
That plenty of times.
It's difficult to do the score, isn't it, while you're speaking?
Of course, it's tricky.
But it's and once you've got the setup, and there's things out there like OBS, it's a free tool, isn't it? It's so easy to use after I've spent 100 hours watching videos on how to use it.
Once you know what you're doing, it's easy to use. But that's the great thing about things like YouTube and stuff, is that you can really upskill yourself. So if you're running a club in Wales, listening to this, being like, wouldn't that be nice? Like, it doesn't take years and years. You don't have to have a master's degree to do this.
Exactly. And I'll put it out there, and I might regret this, but if anybody is watching and wants advice with it, wants to know how to start.
Oh, you're so kind. Look at that.
Get in touch. I even wrote a how-to guide.
Did you really?
I did.
How to stream basketball.
How to stream basketball games, yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's
it's
fantastic.
On a little Word document.
There you are. You've got an offer there for you if anybody's interested in actually doing this a bit more and doing it a bit more professionally. There's a perfect way in. So I want to talk a little bit more specifically about the women's game, because we've got you here and you're so involved with it. It's interesting to me. I've got a little thing that I've got in the back of my head just niggling at me all the time. So I'm a big fan of the women's game over in the US. I think we've seen a kind of a big uptick in that. People like Caitlin Clark and things kind of really bursting through and drawing more eyeballs. To me, the women's game here in the UK seems so much closer to the men's game in terms of standard, quality, but also attention and enjoyability. People seeming to get behind women's teams. It seems so much closer to the men's game than anywhere else, whether that be Europe or America. Do you have a reason why that might be?
I don't know if it's a cultural thing in that because it's very fundamental, isn't it? I think women's basketball. People will take that as a negative thing. That's not a negative thing. It's okay. Or people will use it in a negative sense.
Some people can take that out of context sometimes.
But it's not. It's fundamental basketball. It's when you watch NBA players will watch the WNBA because they appreciate basketball, and I wonder if
the skills,
and I wonder if because the NBA at the moment has got it's ridiculously.
It's a different game. It's a different game.
It's totally out there, isn't it? So the gap between that and the WNBA is really noticeable because you've got. What was the score the other day? 156, 154.
It's unbelievable. They break the record weekly.
It's crazy, and it's almost, I feel like the NBA's almost got away from itself as it's become
possibly
less kind of core basketball because I'm going to sound
it's
old.
an entertainment product now, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's less of a sport.
Yeah. Where's the defense? That's all it's like.
I mean, you get certain teams, but absolutely, I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
I mean, last year you saw a massive uptick in scoring for most people. I think it was. I used to know the stat off by heart. Last year, I think you had 40 players scoring over 20 points per game in the NBA, and I think the most before that season was something like 18.
Oh,
it's just a huge uptick for some reason last season, particularly, and everyone's going, the talent in the NBA is deeper than it's ever been before, and I'm pretty sure that didn't happen in 1 year. Something's changed, something's different. People have worked something out. And you see these 156 to 149 games, and it's, there's more points in the game, there's more people going to score.
Exactly, and you see players like Luka Doncic talking about it's easier to score in Europe.
Yes,
and it's not a knock on the NBA. It's just say they're different. They play differently. The European style of play is different. Yeah, and scoring's fun. People love to watch scoring. People like that's
it's the easiest way for a casual to enjoy, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah. But if you're looking at the gaps and the differences, the European leagues, they're more. Who is it that should move over? Jabari Parker was saying he feels it's a lot more of a team. Right? Yeah, he feels like it's a lot more like the NBA has become a lot more individualistic, whereas playing in Europe is a lot more of a team game, a bit more go back to traditionally what it was. And I think that's probably, and I think we're closer to the European side.
Yeah.
But then I think again the gap between the two is slightly less, and it's slightly less here. So I think that's why the women's and the men's game are more similar. That's just my.
No, because that's why I specifically wanted to ask you, because I thought you'd have a good take on that, because you're so involved with the women's game. You seem to be constantly talking about the women's game because of the podcast and obviously commentary and things. I was wondering if it was to do with netball. That was where my mind went.
Oh, okay. Oh no, that's so. In Australia, I know there's a lot of netball, basketball. Right. I think there's some. I don't know if there's some crossover. We did have a couple of players here a few years ago, but no, I wouldn't. Netball isn't something that I'd have considered coming into it.
Really?
Yeah.
It just, to me, in my head. So I remember specifically. I don't know if this is similar to any other people's schools, but there were days when it was raining and we had PE, and we had two really rubbish gyms in our school, and the boys would play basketball and the girls would play netball. And I wondered if, because netball,
you played netball inside.
Yeah.
We had to play netball outside.
Oh, well, there you
go. We didn't get to play inside sports.
Unlucky. But yeah, no, there was a gym, and they could put the netball things up. I think there was kind of a solid static hoop outside for netball outdoors, but they could put them up. They can put them in the little holes in the ground you see in the gyms. And the girls would play netball and we would play basketball anytime that it was raining and we had PE. So my brain instantly went to, okay, well, maybe girls learned those skills of just shooting and passing and things at an earlier age, and that bridged the gap. But it makes more sense that maybe because we're more core fundamentals here in the UK, closer to that scene in Europe, that it's easier to bridge that gap because not that many people are jumping out the gym here anyway.
Yeah.
That makes more sense.
I'm just trying to think. I think of everyone spoken to from here. I don't think anybody's ever mentioned netball. That they played, like there's been.
I'm an individual thinker. I'll have you know.
Oh no, sorry. You are. Sorry, a player
trails.
That I'm not. I don't think there's been a player that said they started with netball. I know there's been a few who've played football.
Yeah. See a lot of that.
Yaz Edwards is she's an unreal athlete. she's a runner. But. Yeah, I don't think anyone's mentioned they've made that transition over that I've spoken to.
Interesting. I must be completely off there.
No, it's a good. It's
not the first time. It's okay. I can accept that. But I'll pose that in 10 years, and I'll see if the landscape has changed. So just a little bit more specific about basketball. I've been in Manchester for a little while. Just want to talk about the actual teams, how they're doing. Obviously, for the men's, it's not been great so far this year. I don't know. Do you commentate the men's as well as the women's?
No, the men's. So the BBL do everything centrally in London.
Yeah, of course, because I know that they kind of took over everything in house, didn't they, this year?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I mean, they've got some great commentators. Like they've got Adania Stewart. Like,
yeah.
So
Oh my
that's
gosh, yes,
fantastic.
she's fantastic every time I see her. But I just wondered if they'd brought you in at all. But do you keep tabs on the men's?
I do. Yeah. I try to, not as much as I'd like. But yeah, I do. In fact, I was just actually planning today which game I'm going to before.
Which
Christmas.
game?
Yeah,
that's a great thing. Not can I go to a game? Which game should I go to?
Exactly.
That's a good mentality.
Which one fits?
But yeah, they're sitting in ninth, aren't they? Aren't they, the men's? I wonder what's really going on there, because it feels like Manchester's, it should be right behind London. You talk about big cities and where basketball seems to be kind of popping the most, and where there seems to be a real culture. Manchester keeps propping up in conversation for me.
It does, doesn't it? It's a huge city, for music, sports, everything that you want. I think so. They've kept some players from last year. And I think, last year they had a lot of injuries, and I think that's been a little bit the same for them this year. I think Legends has just come back a few games in.
Yes, I think, he came back the game before last, if I remember right, but I'm not 100% caught up on it.
And I just think it happens, doesn't it, when you have those teams, and this is something that in general the BBL and it's the British Basketball League now, isn't it? It's a mouthful.
I'm still going to be calling it the BBL. You can't stop me. I'm going to call it that. I'm lucky.
I forget sometimes, and I just think, oh, I've said it now, so it's fine.
Stuff them.
We don't have long contracts, do we? We have teams where you see a lot of turnover, and that doesn't give you the chance to build. Like it's
continuity is so important.
It really, really is, and it takes more than 20 games sometimes to get people together. And I think
you've seen that at the Archers this year, the WBBL.
Completely. And I think they've suffered from that of Manchester, that turnover, and just not being able to kind of find their feet where they want to. But they have had, like, they played London. Oh, the game before the doubleheader against the women, that London game, that was so close. They were in it to the end, and they were so close. And they've had a few games like that where you think they just needed something to get them over the hump.
Yeah,
and just
London
couldn't
always
quite do it.
They always win the close ones.
Yeah. So I think Manchester have been unlucky in that aspect, and I think maybe they're missing one or two pieces. What I do like that they've got on the bench is Matt Goodwin, who
oh my goodness! He stood out at the Four Nations last year, didn't he?
He's unbelievable. Yeah. He's such a great player. I don't think he's not getting too much court time really, but I think
just to be around there,
exactly. Yeah, and he gets that experience that playing with Jamal Anderson, Cal Jones is there. He's like and players of that caliber being able to learn from you. You're in training with them, you see them, and just getting experience on the bench in the BBL. It's great, and I'd love to see him get some more minutes.
But that's huge for England as well, for the development of players like him.
Yeah, it is absolutely, and it's things like that really help grow as well. Because then he goes into the England squad, the GB squad. He's had the BBL is the highest level of experience you can get here, isn't it? In the UK, if he can get that, it puts him ahead of other players.
Of course, world's his oyster if he can break into that, starting team in the next couple of years.
Yeah, and he's like for me, he's one of the players that you need to keep an eye on.
Sharpshooter. Yeah, he's unbelievable from range,
and he's so bouncy. He's just like boing.
Yeah. That's important. That's important.
Yeah,
there's cameramen up there that must be absolutely loving it any time that he comes up, because he is a photo opportunity every time he seems to drive to the basket. I'd agree that he's someone to watch. He's a really interesting talent. I completely agree.
Definitely. I mean, I've got off tangent here for you.
No. But please tangent as much as you want. That's what podcasts are for. That's why people watch. That's why people listen. I imagine. I imagine. I say that as if I didn't just have my Spotify Wrapped. Did your Spotify Wrapped have anything ridiculous? Mine had 25,000 minutes of podcast listened to this year.
Oh, but do you know what? I haven't done it yet. I haven't had a look. 20,000?
25,000 minutes of podcast listened to this year. I'm slightly, angry with myself. It's like 2.5 weeks of
That's a long time.
Out of 52 weeks, I spent 2.5 of them listening to podcasts. And maybe that's an indictment on
I think that's myself. Good. I think you need to aim for 30,000 next year.
Yeah, I've got to beat it now. But the problem is, at one point, I'm going to be somewhere in my 50s going, I can't turn the podcast off. I have to hit 52 weeks out of 52 weeks listening to podcasts. But there we go. So I want to draw back to Wales. This is the Basketball Wales podcast. So we've spoken about the rise of basketball, how it's growing, where we can do better. But I want to see things here in Wales improve and get to the level where we've got standards like the Archers Arena is a fantastic place to play basketball, fantastic place to come and watch basketball, but it kind of stands alone for us here in Wales. And other than facilities, because we've kind of already spoken about that, is there anything that you've seen in the development of basketball in England that maybe we can steal a few pointers from? Some changes that have been made where you're like, oh, that makes a difference.
So, yeah, I don't know if I imagine you have it at Cardiff with the Arch as well, the pathways, when you've got pathways of younger players coming through, having established teams that they can go to, because not only does it help their player development, they stick around, they watch the games, they tell people about it, families and friends come and see them, people want to be involved.
Brings in younger audiences,
It does, absolutely. And it builds this community out that you then... you go to away games, they go to away games, they build crowds, they take a drum, they make noise. The other team does that when they come here. Yeah. The Division 1 Manchester team, they are loud. Sometimes I can't even hear what I'm saying because there's just drumming in the background.
You want.
It is great.
It's a show.
Yeah. Make some noise. Make it... People don't want to come and play you because you've got that's the home court advantage, isn't it? Make it like that.
Yeah.
So I think pathways work really, really well when they're all working together. And I know sometimes that can be difficult, can't it? When not everyone's on the same page, everything's got their own agendas, different ideas. But if they can work together, put that pathway through, make the whole thing. Watch it at this level. Watch it at this level. Is the wheelchair basketball that you can go and see, as well as the youth, under 16, under 18, and build it as a whole thing.
Absolutely. Also, I just want to tag on something little there. If you're looking to get better at basketball tactically, go and watch wheelchair basketball.
Oh,
there is so much tactics in place that the first time I commentated on wheelchair basketball, I couldn't really believe how much was going on and how much I had to focus on every single person at all times. The tactics that's going on there. If you want to understand basketball to a greater level, I urge you to go and watch wheelchair basketball. Just take a notepad and just write everything you find interesting down and talk to the coaches as well, because they are working harder than any coach I have ever seen. It's fantastic. Tom Guntrip down at the Archers, he does a fantastic job no matter where he's coaching or what he's taking part in. Fair play to him. But what he did with the WPL team at the Archers last season that I saw there was fantastic, and they've got some great players like the Atkins sisters and Sam Hill who are really, really talented players. But the tactics in wheelchair basketball, the way that screens come into play, and you just think, well, what can I take from this here and apply it to walking basketball? I think that's an absolute cheat sheet. Sorry to just tag on, but that just came into my brain.
No, absolutely, because you're right. I was saying this to someone the other day. There's so much off the ball. You're not just watching the ball. Everything.
You're forced to watch off the ball.
Yeah. And I find it so interesting because sometimes you get sucked into someone setting a screen. You're like, oh, where is the ball? Like, what's going on? But no,
we can't do that as commentators, unfortunately. No. But if you're just watching, you can get lost in someone who set 4 screens in 8 seconds and is crashing. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. I love wheelchair basketball. It's one of the best things that I've seen come out of basketball.
It's great. Have you ever tried it?
No, I haven't. I had an opportunity to at we have there's like a Welsh language association here called the Urdd in Wales, and they have street games that they put on this big festival, and it's basketball and it's skateboards and scooters, and it's all kind of crazy, and it kind of takes over Cardiff Bay. I had an opportunity to do it last year, and I was just so afraid of being in it and falling out, because I'd seen so many times people playing wheelchair basketball ending up on the ground, and I'm so afraid of that happening, because I'm convinced that I'm going to end up underneath the wheelchair, and I'm going to need a wheelchair, and it's just it's going to be awful. And I'm a big guy, so I don't think it's for me. But if you want to get involved, absolutely. I'm assuming you have then by that question.
I haven't because I'd like to, but it looks so hard, and
I've not got the arms for it.
I know.
I've not got the arms for it. Oh my goodness.
like I've tried. We just at my practice on in the week. We sometimes do a drill where we just sit on a chair and just shoot. Like it goes nowhere near the hoop. Like
no,
how does anyone do
harder.
that?
It's so much harder to shoot a basketball without jumping, or without standing up. It's so impressive what these people can do. It's absolutely fantastic.
The upper body strength is unreal.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. So it's not just without standing up, without doing a jump shot or going through that natural motion. It's wheeling yourself, pushing your body to the spot, crashing into someone, and then shooting. So you're already tired before you start.
And sometimes you're dribbling it as well. And you're like,
of course.
Like, dribble,
of course you are.
Wheel, stop. Like, my brain
without going in a circle.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So before we move on to our kind of final chat, I am noticing that time is going by. I mentioned something to you when I was up in Manchester, just talking about the World Cup in 2027. And I was saying that for me, that's a massive goal of mine. I don't know. I don't care how. I don't care what I'm doing, but I want to work that tournament. I want to be there. So I just wanted to kind of pose that question to you. Do you have any kind of dreams, goals, ambitions as a commentator, and how do you plan on realizing them?
That's a really good question. So it's kind of funny that because when I did the BBC game in February for GB, that was like an absolute highlight.
I bet,
it was something I didn't even dream of. Even when I started doing this and I started doing stuff for Basketball England and things, coming over to Basketball Wales with you, and it wasn't even something that ever entered my head because it just seemed so wildly
I'm on BBC.
Place. Yeah. And I got back and I watched it and I was like, wow.
That's my voice.
That's me. Yeah, on the BBC.
Yeah.
So I'd love to do some stuff for FIBA. That would be really exciting. And it's the Women's World Cup in 2026 in Berlin. And I'm kind of enjoying the ride, and I'm going to see these opportunities come to me and I say yes to them.
It's hard to say no, isn't it?
That's and I was speaking to someone about this, and she was saying she was sort of not trying to seek things out because they came to obviously making a path and doing what you can.
You can't start off by just waiting for them to come to you.
If I just sit here in my room,
one day someone will ask me to commentate for the NBA.
Yeah. But maybe that is something that needs to be a push for. But I would, I'd love to do things for FIBA, and being a Eurobasket qualifier was unreal because I watched Eurobasket qualifiers, and maybe being at Eurobasket. I mean, the World Cup would be that's something else, isn't it?
It's got to be done. Olympics maybe one day. If there's another UK Olympics in my lifetime.
Let me give you my wild Olympic take, okay?
Oh yeah, please.
2032 Olympics, okay, 10 years from now. We've got LA in 2028. A veteran Holly Winterburn takes GB to a podium finish. So we'll come back to this in 10 years.
10 years. Okay, start your clocks. 10 years from now, we'll have another Basketball Wales podcast with me and Cazz. We'll go over whether she was unbelievably right or massively wrong. Okay, so we're going to move on to our final little bit. That's a good dream. That's a good. I think ambition is better than dream. But let's move on to our final little bit where we do some NBA chat, just in case anybody watching is just waiting for that thing, because I felt it in the first couple of episodes. People were like, "I like the podcast. We didn't talk about the NBA at all." So I do want to just jump over to the NBA just for the final 10 minutes or so for a quick chat. Now, you do follow the NBA. We were speaking before we started recording. Do you have a particular team that you follow in the NBA at all?
So I got two. Well, three. Oh. No, let me start that again. So I love the Raptors. The Raptors. But I grew up watching the Bulls and Michael Jordan. Yeah. So
I can understand that.
Yeah. And
I'm
obviously
a Celtics fan, but
I've seen the Celtics. I've seen the Celtics in Boston.
You've seen the Celtics
when I was in Boston.
As in live?
Oh yeah.
I thought you were just generally saying, like I've heard of the Celtics.
I know of them.
Right.
No, oh my goodness. The Garden, and wow, that was my first. That was my first game NBA game that I went to, and wow, I bet. Yeah. And they were playing Milwaukee.
Right. Okay.
It was like it was a seat like right at the top, It was like that when I went to the box office, they'd got like 3 seats left, and it was like right at the top, right at the back. But it was just but it was unreal. Yeah,
I bet. Okay, so you love the Raptors and the Bulls.
I love the Raptors and the Bulls, but then how can you not love watching Steph Curry, because he's a shooter and I love shooters. Yes. And it's just like,
I was hoping for Steph Curry to be involved here somewhere. I mean, I think the interesting thing with the NBA at the moment is we've kind of been talking about. I promise this is going to come back to Steph Curry, but we've kind of been talking about how old LeBron is now for seemingly so long.
Forever.
That's all just going on. It's like, this can't continue for another year, can it? And by doing so, we've kind of forgotten about the fact that people like Steph Curry, Kevin Durant are now 34, 35 and doing things that no 34, 35-year-old other than LeBron has ever done before. It's unbelievable.
It's crazy. And LeBron does these things and everyone's just like, oh yeah, he's just doing that because it's LeBron.
Oh yeah, 30-point triple-double or whatever.
He's made it seem so common that like you say, you forget. You know, Steph's out there, the greatest shooter
of all time, and it's not a question.
Exactly. Yeah. And as you say, KD, it's and it's turning, is it though? Because there's going to be 4 or 5 years time, those guys aren't going to be there, or they're not going to be at that level.
At that level, at least. I'm not betting on anything with LeBron anymore.
No, he's going to play till he's 50, isn't he?
Yeah,
like he's gonna,
until he can own a team, he's going to play. It is unreal. And the impressive thing with Steph is, of course, his first 2, 3, 4 years, people were wondering, how long is this guy going to play at all because of the state of his ankles? And then I don't know what the Golden State Warriors did for him, or if they sent him off to Germany for some stem cells or whatever. But now he's still constantly in motion, always running through screens, setting like fake runs here and then curling around and then hitting, 50-foot shots. He's still shooting these unbelievably long-range shots, and he's still, I'd say, if you're going to watch a game for one person, he's the best bang for your buck in the NBA.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing that I love the most about him, he plays with such joy. I love it when you see players and they're having fun. I know you've got to be serious. I know it's going to be a job and you've got to do what you've got to do.
Baby-faced assassin, isn't he? So
it's fun to watch someone like he loves it. He loves it. I just need the rest of Golden State to bring themselves up.
Yeah, I mean, they just got knocked out of the in-season tournament. Clay is not Clay anymore.
See, I give Clay a pass because I was just listening to Stephen A. Smith on this yesterday.
Okay, he's always calm and reasonable.
He is, isn't he? Yeah, very, very, very chilled out man. I just think he has two really serious injuries, and I just give him a pass because he's just having a down season. And
is he though? He though?
No, he is. You will come back to this time next year. They'll be fine. It'll be a distant memory. He's just having an off season. He's just having I mean, it's a bad season to have an off season when it's a contract year.
Every year now, every year with Steph from here on out is a bad year for his teammates to be poor.
Yes. Yeah.
You can't waste these years.
No. And Draymond needs to stop getting thrown out of games.
Draymond needs to stop. You can just end that there.
Just stop.
He's just got a massive extension. I mean, anyway. I don't know what they're going to do with Clay. Would you extend him if you were the Golden State Warriors? Would you extend Clay?
I would, because he's Klay Thompson. And
even if he's like demanding a max contract, I don't know how you can justify with his performance over the past 2 seasons.
But look at everything he's done before. Like last season, he's coming off the injury. But he's no, you do it. He's Klay Thompson.
You do it.
Yeah. He's gonna pick back up. He's gonna pick back up after, when he's not gonna be playing as he is now the entire season. I mean,
he turned it up in the finals. So I'm a Boston Celtics fan. You might be able to tell by the Ray Allen jersey, and the massively green room. I shouldn't just point to the jersey, but yeah, when the Celtics played the Warriors in the finals in what was that, 2022. I was convinced that Clay was going to be just a nothing factor, and then he just turns it on for the finals. But can he do it for 100 games a year anymore? I'm not sure.
And can you get there? You have to get there.
You've got to get to the finals first.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Cazz. That's all our time. I'm seeing the clock just tick on, and I don't want to keep you for the rest of the evening. Although I'm sure we could have talked for 4 or 5 hours here today. Honestly, it's been brilliant to have you on, and I'm sure maybe we can do it again sometime. Maybe when Manchester are doing a little bit better in the BBL and the WBBL, so you can have some positive things to talk about them on the call. But honestly, it means a lot that you come on, and it's been fantastic to chat to you.
No, this has been absolutely brilliant. And I'm so glad we were able to do it. And definitely you have to return the favour. Come on, Focus Hoops.
Absolutely.
We'll chat
Anytime.
Because I mean, there's so much to talk about, isn't there?
Of course, we can talk all day.
It would be a regular thing. We could just be like, let's just talk basketball constantly.
Honestly, just give me a call. You've got my number. Anytime. Anyway, so thank you, Cazz, and I hope that you've all enjoyed that. I know that we've gone maybe a little in depth on some nerdy things within the kind of basketball community in the basketball world here in the UK, but I hope that you enjoyed it. And I know that it hasn't been particularly focused on Wales, but I've tried to draw it back whenever I can. So please just give me a break. Okay, I tried my best for Wales. I tried my best to bring it back as much as I could, but we'll be back with another episode really, really soon. I'm not going to give a deadline because last time I said 2 weeks and we weren't able to get this done in 2 weeks. So I'm not giving myself a deadline this time. But thank you very much for watching. Make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the Basketball Wales YouTube channel. And I'll see you soon. Thank you.